Howdy everyone, I'm Dust Bunny, and welcome back to the Podfic's Baton Pass. Puppy was not able to do this chapter because kind of very busy right now, so I'll be doing it instead. Today we'll be reading Chapter 18 of ShutterBug by I. Riley. If all goes well, Evie is Evil will be reading Chapter 19 tomorrow. Walking into class, Peter spots Tim and Duke waving him over. "Hey, Peter, you switched into this class?" Duke asks as Peter sets his bag down on the desk, slipping into the seat by it. "Hey, yeah. I took the other class already in high school, so they let me test out of it." Duke nods before nudging Tim, whose head snaps up. "Huh?" Duke gives Tim a deadpan look. "Dude, you gotta stop falling asleep with your eyes open. It's creepy." Oh. Hey, Peter. You get switched to this class?" Peter laughs a bit, but re-explains. "Gotcha. Well, welcome to Advanced Mathematics," Tim says, gesturing to the half-filled classroom. "Be forewarned, the professor is a real stickler for show your work," Duke says, with a slight cringe. Tim nods before adding to it. "She's a stick in the mud for sure." Peter nods but doesn't get to say anything as the students sit, seeing the professor walk in. The professor is an older woman wearing a pencil skirt and blouse. She also wears heavy makeup, the kind you see in an old film, and her hair is pulled back into a tight bun. "Welcome back. We're going to jump straight into it today, with limits and continuity." She moves to open a whiteboard marker and speaks as she writes on the board. "The function g is defined for all real numbers except for x equals 5. What is a reasonable estimate for the limit of gx?" She finishes by drawing out a graph before turning to the class, who are all furiously taking notes. She locks eyes with Peter's and seems to think for a moment. "You. I haven't seen you before. I take it you're the new student." Peter gulps. Yes, ma'am. I'm Peter." She cuts him off. "I didn't ask. Come up and solve this problem." Peter hesitantly stands when Duke speaks up. "Don't you think that's a bit unfair? He hasn't even been in class for a day yet." She gives him a look before talking. "That may be true, but he tested out of his previous class, did he not? This shouldn't be too hard for him." She looks at Peter, who continues his walk up front. Peter sends a nod and smile to Duke, who looks unsure. Grabbing a marker, he starts to write out the problem, making sure to show his work. -2. While it wasn't hard to figure out the answer, looking at the graph, Peter figured she'd want the equation solved. That is correct. You may sit." Peter nods and wipes away his work before sitting down. Picking up his pencil once he's sat, Peter can only hope he doesn't get called out again. After class. That class couldn't have ended sooner. Duke drolls out as they walk out from the classroom. "It wasn't that bad." Tim starts but gets cut off by Duke. "You wouldn't know. You were asleep the whole time. You didn't even get to witness Peter's brave sacrifice." He clenches his fist as he sheds a tear, causing Peter to laugh. "It was hardly a sacrifice. All she did was call me up to answer a question. It wasn't hard either. You didn't even need the equation to find the answer." He can hear Duke whisper a quick, "So brave." But Tim gives a low whistle. "Not often she calls people up. Carefully you don't end up on her hit list." He lets that sit for a few seconds before moving on. "You want to go get lunch?" Duke nods and Peter gives his own agreement as they make their way to get food. Where that is, Peter has no idea. He's at a Batburger. Damn. "What's wrong, Pete? Not a fan of Batburger?" Duke asks as Tim goes up to order. Peter shakes his head before responding. "It's not that. I just feel like I'm here too often." Duke hums with a nod. "I get that. How's your collection going?" It takes Peter a second to figure out he's talking about the kids' meal figures. "I have almost all of them, I think. A couple of duplicates, too." "Who do you have the most of?" Tim asks as he rejoins the table, holding a large tray with 3 bags and 2 Robin meals. "I think it's between Nightwing and Red Hood." Duke gives a grin while asking, "Who's your favorite of the 2? Peter thinks for a second. "Probably Red Hood?" Duke grins even wider, and Tim sighs before changing the subject. What's the plan for Halloween? There's a party at one of the frats, and everyone's invited. I think Steph said she wanted to go. How about it, Peter? Did I just get invited to a party? He thinks before nodding. Sure, I'll go. Tim nods and pulls out his phone. Steph and Cass should be getting out of class about now. I'll tell them to meet us here, to talk about costumes. While they wait, Peter moves to stand and get his own food, when Tim stops him. Those are yours. Hope you don't mind a burger. You don't have to pay for it. Here. Peter tries to pull money out, but Tim stops him. I'm not worried about it. I got money to get rid of anyway. Tim shrugs, but Peter can see the slight frown. Peter gives a small nod before starting to eat. I'll get the next one. Duke laughs. 10 minutes later. Now that Steph and Cass are there, they launch into a discussion about what costumes they want to wear, and if they should do a group one. Steph pauses and gives a large grin. I know what we can do. Once she knew she had their attention, she continues. Why don't we dress as the local vigilantes? After a minute, they all seem to nod. How will we decide who will be who, though? Duke asks, making the blonde think. Seeing the robin meals sitting on the table, she gives another grin. We'll each get a robin meal and ask for different figures. Whoever we pull is who we'll be. Cass nod, and Tim, Duke, and Peter think about it for a moment, giving a nod soon after. Standing, Peter walks up to the counter before they can say anything. Hearing Duke's, he did say he'd get the next one, followed by a few laughs. Peter waits for his turn. How can I help you? Peter gives the worker a small smile before starting to order. Could I just get 5 robin meals with different toys? 3 with burgers and 2 with nuggets. The worker nods and puts it in, checking the meal out and letting Peter pay before moving to make the meals. Once meals are in hand, Peter walks back to the table, setting them down in a line. Take your pick. At his words, they all grab a box before opening it. This should be interesting. Steph will be going as Red Robin, Cass as Signal, Tim as Nightwing, Duke as Spoiler, and Peter as Red Hood. Should we buy them or make them? Steph asks, and Tim hums. We could make them. Might be fun, Duke says, getting nods around the table. Sounds like a group chat is in order, Steph says, bringing out her phone. I have a feeling this is going to be chaotic, Peter thinks, as he slides his phone across the table. Later that evening. Opening his phone, Peter sees a message from Jen. Jen, you have a job request from a big shot in Metropolis. I have a paper for you to sign to get out of class. Peter, okay, I'll be by tomorrow to grab it and let my professors know. Scene, 8:42 p.m. Jen, K. Closing his phone, Peter lays down on his mattress. Finally going about his homework, he's able to sleep. If you enjoyed this, there's a link in the description below that leads to the playlist. The link is gonna look weird, I know, but it says ShutterBug on it, with a little YouTube logo. I promise that's the link. I know it looks weird. I promise it's the correct link. Also down in the description is the link to the original work if you want to read ahead. If you enjoyed my reading, you could subscribe if you want. Or go down to the comments and tell me what else I should read. I'm slowly getting through my backlog. Thanks for listening.